Encapsulated Rose Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hello everyone! So in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I created this encased flower nail art design that you see. You see encapsulated flowers quite a bit and they're usually solid white, and I always thought that you couldn't see the flower as well as I'd like to, so I decided to try it using a two-tone and I was really happy with the results. So I hope you like this little tutorial, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. So I'm going to begin by just painting over my nail tip with 2 coats of a glittery gold gel polish. If you were doing this on your own nail, create a very super thin overlay of acrylic and then paint the gel polish over. And the gel polish is one of the keys to making sure that this stays thin. That way you don't have that thickness that the acrylic creates when you do a color acrylic as your base. So now to form my rose, first I'm going to take a bead of white acrylic and then I'm going to dip it into a pink pigment. The pigment has a much better color payoff than if you were to dip it into a different shade of acrylic, but if you don't have a pink pigment, just go ahead and dip it into pink acrylic instead. So I'm going to place 2 beads down and then form them into these wide C shapes on either side of where I want the rose to be. So these are going to be the outer petals, and so I'm going to place 2 and then I'm going to pat them out. Instead of doing 1 and then letting it turn matte and then going through and doing the second one, I like to do 2 at a time. It just goes a little bit quicker, and actually it makes it a little easier because you don't get too anxious and pat them out too soon. And so when you're doing something that you're going to encase and you want to keep it thin, you need to make sure that all of your petals get thinned out quite well. They need to be very nice and very thin and very smooth. Otherwise, you're probably going to end up filing through the clear layer later on and filing into the rose, which isn't really what you want to be doing. So just keep going through and adding layer after layer of petal inside petal. And so when you're patting them out, you want to make sure that you wait until the surface of your acrylic turns a little bit matte, almost so it looks kind of velvety. And once it has that sort of smooth sheen, but it doesn't look super shiny and super wet, then that's when you're going to want to start patting it out with your brush. If you don't wait for that, it's not going to hold its shape as well, and it's just sort of going to plump back up into the shape that it was before. It's not going to hold that shape that you want it to be and that you're trying to form it into, and it's just going to be more of a headache than anything else. So make sure that you let that set and let that rest before you start trying to form it. And as you're getting towards the center of your flower, you're going to want to make each petal a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller so that they keep the same proportions of the distance around, but you just don't want them to get, if you get them too big, then you're not going to have that intricate quality that you're looking for. So then for the center, I'm going to just place a bead in the center and then pat that out, create a little hole in the center, and then fan out that entire circle. And for the very last little bit in the middle, just use white because there's going to be sort of a halo of pink around it, and so just white's going to show up. And then also to further make my flower dimensional in appearance once it's encased, I'm going to highlight the edge of each petal with just a very thin line of white paint. And white paint is going to be a brighter shade of white than white acrylic is. White acrylic has almost a translucency that makes it a little less bright white, and so if you use a little bit of paint on the edges, they really are going to crisp up and make your whole flower a lot more visible. So now I'm going to be encasing my flower, as I'm sure you know if you listen to me, you encase the flower. That's the next step. And you want to make sure that your white acrylic paint is very dry before you start applying clear over the top of it, because otherwise it's going to smear and it's not going to have those nice bright white lines. And I would suggest doing this in several small beads instead of trying to encase the entire thing in one large bead, because you're going to have less bubbles and a much smoother application that way. And so I had to press it into the petals so that you make sure that there's no, like I said, no air bubbles, because those are going to definitely ruin your design. So then file your nail with a 150 grit file or a 180. And the reason I mentioned a 150, I don't normally suggest using such a rough file, is because you want this to stay thin. And then buff it and then apply a layer of gel sealer and cure it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I would really love to see them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!